Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
All right, it's Parashat Chukat this week once again. And Chukat, of course, starts off with a famous story of the offering called the red heifer. Now, after we get the instructions about the offering of the red heifer, this week's Parashat takes a massive leap in time. Last week we studied the story of Korach, remember? That happened in the second year of the Exodus. This week's Parashat, after the instructions of the red heifer, jumps ahead 38 years to just before we're about to enter into the land of Israel. So for those 38 years, you can call it the silent years, it seems as if we didn't commit any sins or complain even once, because the Torah says nothing about what happened in those 38 years. So we got here with a new generation about to enter into the land of Israel. And the new generation makes the same mistakes as the previous generations, because Miriam passes away, of course, 38 years into the Exodus. And when Miriam passes away, the water all of a sudden dries up. We used to have this well, this rock that followed us through the wilderness that was supplying us water. As soon as Miriam died, that well stopped providing water. That's why it's called Miriam's well. So the people started moaning and complaining to Moses. Well, Moses was busy mourning the death of his sister, and he decided to go speak to Hashem. And Hashem said to him, go speak to the rock. And Moses listens like my kids. And what did he do? He goes and hits the rock instead of speaking to the rock. Anyway, so then him and poor Aaron get their dues that they're not allowed to enter the land of Israel. And then, of course, Aaron also passes away in this week's parasha. And when Aaron passes away, our tradition tells us the clouds of glory no longer protected us for these last 39 years in the desert. So what happens then? We start complaining again. What do we complain about this time? Not just the drinks, but the food. The manna. So the new younger generation complains about the manna as well. And Hashem punishes them by sending them snakes, poisonous, sniggery snakes, to come and bite them. And everyone gets infected by these venomous snakes, and people start dying. And Moshe gets told to create this copper snake on a pole and raise it up. And whenever you lift up your head, then you get healed from the venomous snakes. And they thought, oh, what a wonderful miracle. Let's sing a song. So they start singing a song, and they start worshipping Hashem. And then the parasha ends off with the wars that we fight in the Transjordan against Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the giant Og, king of Bashan. That's this week's parasha, Parashat Chukat. Now the name of the parasha, Chukat, the word chok is the word that talks about one of the types of commandments we get in the Torah, right? We've got mitzvot, which are like commandments. God says, do this, etc., etc., etc. Then you've got things called mishpatim, which are like judgments that Hashem gives us to make sure we live in a civil society. Civil laws we find in the Torah. We've also got things called edus, which are testimonies, like you've got to keep Pesach to remember what I did for you when I brought you out of Egypt. And then we've got these type of things called chokim. Chokim or chok it's a commandment from Hashem. We usually translate it into English as a statute, which basically has no understanding behind it. We do it because God said so. You can't rationalize it. We do it, and it makes no sense to us, but we do it, right? It's sponsored by Nike. Just do it. Why? Because Hashem said so. Just do it because Hashem said so. People try to rationalize them, but you can't. So there are certain commandments in the Torah we just do because Hashem says so. Don't try and understand it. I've got a joke about these kind of commandments, but you wouldn't understand it. So the red heifer this week that we're studying, it's known as the great paradox in the Torah. Why is it a paradox? Because you take this animal, the red heifer, you burn it up completely, you take its ashes, put it in the water, and it becomes this purifying water that can purify somebody who was contaminated by a corpse or by death. But the paradox is that the priest himself, who actually comes and purifies you, as soon as he purifies you, he himself becomes impure. Right? So there's a bit of a paradox there. And it's difficult to explain this. So much so that the Midrash tells us even King Solomon, the wisest man in history, couldn't understand this one chok, this one commandment in the Torah. The Midrash actually says that when he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, in chapter 7, verse 23, he says the following. He says, I said that I would be wise, but wisdom was far from me. This is the wisest man in history. Something that he struggled with is what? The Midrash tells us it was this commandment. He couldn't figure out why Hashem would give us this commandment where when you purify someone else, you yourself become impure. Okay, so that's the commandment of the red heifer. So red heifers are not that common. You guys were in Israel recently. You went to see the red heifers that they've got there at the moment, just in case Mashiach comes back today. We've got a few red heifers lined up, but they're not very common at all. When else did you guys see a red cow? Red bulls, however, are very common. Okay. Now, I know there's a difference between a heifer and a bull. I'm not of the new age that doesn't know the genders. But today I do want to talk about Red Bulls that we see quite often. You know the creator of the energy drink Red Bull, the guy who invented the drink. Do you know which day he died in the Jewish calendar? On a Shabbat, just before Pesach, the Shabbat we call Shabbat Parah, which is the Sabbath of the red heifer. We read it every year just before Pesach. He died on that very Shabbat. Ooh. So, the signs are everywhere, okay. So, now another Red Bull that I want to talk about is this Red Bull right here. How many of you recognize this logo? The Chicago Bulls. Right, the Chicago Bulls. Now, in the 90s, the Chicago Bulls, of course, is a basket team, for those of you that don't have a clue what I'm talking about, are arguably the best sporting team in the history of all sports. They were really amazing. They had this team, they called it the Dream Team, of which was, of course, led by the GOAT himself, the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan. Everyone knows Michael Jordan, right? Just checking. Even those of you that don't know basketball, you guys know Michael Jordan. So today I want to talk about this red heifer and show you how I can connect it to this week's parasha. Now, this logo, by the way, I mean, in the 90s, I was born in 89. So I was still like a little 1, 2, 3 or 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old when the Dream Team came along. So I knew nothing about basketball. But at my house, we had a backboard with a basketball ring that had this logo on it. The Chicago Bulls logo. Growing up, I got clothes with this logo on it, the Chicago Bulls. Till today, I still buy myself clothes with the Chicago Bull logo on it. And Michael Jordan made it iconic. Today the team is absolutely horrible, but everyone still loves the image and the logo to remind us of that Dream Team from back in the day. In fact, Michael Jordan himself, because he was so iconic, he went and made his own brand, and now people wear, myself included, I buy his brand as well. He was got Jordans, these shoes with him jumping like this. It's this iconic image of Michael Jordan. So today I want to connect the story from the parasha with a story with Michael Jordan himself. Since we're talking about the Red Bulls, let's get into it. All right, I want to talk about the death of the high priest, Aaron. Aaron passes away in this week's parasha. And when he passes away, the Torah tells us, it doesn't just tell us people mourned, it tells us the entire house of Israel mourned for the death of Aaron for 30 days long. Why was Aaron so beloved by everyone in Israel? When Moshe dies, a few parashas from now, it tells us the Israelites mourned for Moshe 30 days. But when it comes to Aaron, it tells us the entire house of Israel mourned for Aaron. People loved Aaron even more than they loved Moshe. Now, one of the Midrashim tell us it's because Moshe told us, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. He used to give us paksla every now and then. Whereas Aaron was always loving, always peace-seeking, always on our side. Even when we wanted to go and build an idol, he built it for us, the golden calf. Never mind the red heifer, he built the gold one for us as well. Right? So Aaron was extremely beloved by the people. Rashi quotes the Midrash that tells us, one of the reasons why it tells us in this week's parasha, the entire house of Israel mourned for Aaron, was because it was both men and women who mourned for him alike. Whereas with Moshe, it was just the men. Why would both men and women be mourning for Aaron? Because Aaron was our marriage counselor. Whenever people had issues because the husband wouldn't put the toilet seat down or whatever the problem is, right, it's always the husband's fault, they would come to Aaron, and Aaron would be the one to make peace between husband and wife. And because they came back together and repaired the relationships, what would happen 9 months later? Another baby would come along, and inevitably, we would call that baby Aaron. That's why, the Midrash tells us, that's why there are so many Aarons among the children of Israel, because of what Aaron did in repairing relationships between husband and wife. Everyone thought, oh, well, in honor to him, we're just going to name our child Aaron because he's the reason why we got back together. Now, that Midrash continues, by the way, talking about Aaron, and the fact that Aaron, one of the reasons why Aaron is so beloved is because Aaron, beyond just repairing marriage relationships, Aaron was known as the pinnacle of a peacemaker. He was the peacemaker among Israel. When anyone had a fight, Aaron would always sort it out and make them friends again. He made sure we never had a machloikas, an argument or a fight with each other within the people of Israel. He was the original hippie, right? When we read about his clothes a few parashas ago, we learned that at the bottom of his cloak he had what? Bells. So he wore bell bottoms, right? And he walked around all day saying peace to everyone. Not like this, but like this, right? Close enough. Blessing the people with peace and putting the peace of Hashem upon the people. He was the original hippie. So that same Midrash continues and explains this is what Aaron did. We might have heard this many times before. So whenever two people had a fight, let's call them Shimon and Reuben. When Shimon and Reuben had a fight or an argument with each other, what Aaron would do is he would secretly go to Shimon. And he'd say, hey, Shimon, you know, Reuben is very embarrassed about that sin that he committed against you in public. And he actually feels very, very bad. So bad that he's actually embarrassed to come to you and apologize. But he knows what he did was wrong, and he wants to make reparations with you. Next time you see him, why don't you go up to him, give him a hug, and accept his apology? And then when old Reuben would say, okay, fine, let's say it's Reuben, right? He would say, okay, fine, next time I see him, it'll be fine. Then he would go around the back and go speak with the other Shimon. And he'd say, hey, listen here, Shimon, now speaking with Reuben, and Reuben felt very sorry for the sin he committed against you, He feels so bad, but he's embarrassed, and he doesn't want to talk to you because he doesn't want to let his shame be thrown out in public. So I tell you what, next time you see him, why don't you go up to him? He wants to apologize to you. Why don't you go start off and make him more comfortable by giving him a hug? And he would play both sides of the coin like that. And then next time the guys would see each other, they'd both go and hug each other, and the problem was solved. This is what Aaron was known for. This is why in the Pirkei Avot, our great sage Hillel tells us, I think it's Pirkei Avot 1 verse 12, he tells us, be a disciple of Aaron, loving peace and pursuing peace. That's the key one, pursuing peace. Everyone loves the idea of peace, right? In the abstract. No one likes it in the concrete. Pursuing peace is what Aaron was known for. Everyone wants peace, but no one wants to put in the hard work to actually create peace among brothers. So I want to tell you a story. Let's go back into these guys, specifically about Michael Jordan. Now, some of you guys might know the story. There's a famous rabbi, a Chabad rabbi by the name of Shayas Taub. Ever heard of him? Some of you guys know him. Many of us went to go listen to him speak at Sinai in Daba a few years ago as well, here in South Africa. Rabbi Shayas Taub tells the story of when he was a 12-year-old kid. He grew up in Chicago, so he, of course, loved the Chicago Bulls. And what they would do is, he and his buddies, he was about 12 years old, they would go to the complex where they trained every day, at the end of the day, so that when the players come out of the training complex to their cars, all the kids would stand there with papers and posters and basketballs to get the signatures of these superstars. So he would go there, and one day he went there just to see Michael Jordan. And he went with a piece of paper and his Cokie pen, and he stood in the line with all his other buddies, and Michael Jordan signed all of their stuff. But by the time he got to this Rabbi Shayas Taub, the 12-year-old, Michael Jordan got sick of signing, and he decided to go to his car. And as he walked to his car, he had this famous Corvette with a number plate that said Air 23. Anyway, and as he went to his car, this young rabbi, before he was a rabbi, of course, he ran up to Michael Jordan, stuck his hands in the car as the door was still open and said, yes, sign this. And Michael Jordan looked at this kid and he said, you better get your hand out of my car or I'm going to slam it in the door. And this little 12-year-old kid was broken inside. He couldn't believe that his hero just shouted at him and threatened to smash his fingers in his door, that famous Corvette that everyone knew. And he walked away that day crying. He went home and he told his dad what had happened. He told his dad, I hate Michael Jordan. You know how kids are. They use the word hate as if it actually isn't retractable. I hate Michael Jordan. I'm never going to be a fan of his ever again. Kids' dreams were broken. Now his father decided he's going to do something about this. His father went searching left, right, and center to find the home address of Michael Jordan. And he wrote him a handwritten letter saying, listen, this is my son. He's actually one of your biggest fans. Unfortunately, he caught you at a bad time when you wanted to go home and he stuck his hands in your car, but he didn't see it that way. I understand you were tired from practice and all that stuff, but as a kid, his dreams were completely shattered when you did that to him. Don't you want to try and do something to make it up for you? To make it up for him? Because I know that's not who you really are. You're an outstanding man, you're an honorable man, and you're one of the greatest influences on my child. Please, can you do something to make it up for him? A week later, Michael Jordan phoned their house. So the father calls his son, his 12-year-old son, and he says, listen, phone for you. So, who is it? And he said, Johnny? No. It's Michael J. MJ himself, Michael Jordan. The kid couldn't believe it. He picked up the phone and Michael Jordan apologized to the kid. And he told the kid, why don't you come to our game this weekend? And after the game, come into our locker room. Bring a poster with, I'll sign anything you want. We can take photos together. And he went there as a 12-year-old little Jewish boy with his kippah and tzitzit, went and took a photo with Michael Jordan, got his stuff signed. And once again, he was a fan of the great MJ, Michael Jordan, not Michael Jackson. All right. Today he's a rabbi, a Chabad rabbi, a very, very, very famous rabbi, by the way. I was looking for a cool story from a rabbi. But even cooler than the idea that he got to meet Michael Jordan is the way that he remembers the story. Because to him, the hero in the story is not Michael Jordan. To him, the hero in the story is his dad. Why? Because his dad was a disciple of Aaron, loving peace and pursuing peace, to the point of stalking old Michael Jordan to find out where he lived and send him that letter. He was a true disciple of Aaron. How often don't we overlook or miss an opportunity to actively pursue peace when friends or someone we know are having an argument, a quarreling, or a machloikas between each other? Usually when two people have a fight or an argument, what do? I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, right? We stay out of it. And we end up polarizing them even further away from each other. Sometimes we even take one person's side and say, yeah, you're right, that person's a maniac. Right? Don't mention any names. We do this instead of pursuing peace between people. And what do? When we leave it alone and we don't address it as soon as possible, we let it fester into something that's completely ugly and disgusting and almost irreparable. Why do we do that? I don't understand why we as human beings do that. It's such a waste of energy, such a waste of time. If there's a problem, just fix it, get over yourself and move on with life. We've got somewhere to go. Why do we have all this baggage that holds us back? But no, we do it every single time. The truth is, we need to be like disciples of Aaron. We need to be peace seekers whenever there's a machloikas, an argument between brothers. Yeshua told us to do the same thing, right? He told us this is what's going to distinguish us from all the other types of disciples in the world. He says, people will know that you are my disciples by this, by your love for one another. That's supposed to be our signature. That's supposed to be our logo. Never mind this Red Bull. That's supposed to be our logo and our catchphrase. The love that we show for one another, even if we have disagreements with each other. Even if we've got issues with biblical interpretation. We're not supposed to hate each other and say, oh, that muchu, never mind him. We're supposed to love each other. But the problem is, showing love for someone else, if you're the outside party, when two people are fighting, and trying to bring peace between those people, very often comes with a cost involved. Trying to be a peacemaker is not as easy as it seems. Usually it costs you time, effort, and the risk of becoming the enemy of both of those people you're trying to bring back together. This is unfortunately what happens. And what does Yeshua teach us? When someone strikes you on the cheek, turn the other cheek. What do we want to do? No, we want to fight fire with fire. No, if you want to live in a society where we pursue peace, we have to understand that sometimes it comes at a loss to ourselves. We have to give up an offering. We have to sacrifice something for the sake of peace to exist. After all, that is the exact premise of the red heifer in this week's parasha. Because what happens with the red heifer? The priest who purifies the person who's impure to make peace between that person and God, he himself becomes impure. He takes on that impurity upon himself for the sake of making peace between God and that person. That is the paradox that old Solomon struggled to understand, that we still don't really understand till this day. And it's the same paradox that's realized in the work of Yeshua that he did for us on the cross. Paul picks this up in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. He says, God made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. You see, he makes us sinful human beings at peace between Hashem, so that we can return to our Creator and meet with him face to face. So, to be disciples of Yeshua, to be disciples of Aaron, we have to actively pursue peace between brothers, regardless of what it might cost us personally. In basketball terms, you got to take one for the team. Michael Jordan has got a famous saying. He said, talent wins you matches, but teamwork wins you trophies. We're on the same team. We have to realize this. All of us as disciples of Yeshua, even our extended brothers that are going to go worship him tomorrow, these are still our brothers. We're on the same team. We're fighting the same battle. We're not supposed to be fighting against each other. We have to pursue peace for the entire house of Israel. Aaron would have showed peace with every single one of us, no matter how big a muchu you are. He would have tried to make peace between you and your brother. And we need to be disciples of Aaron doing that exact same thing. It's not the celebrity that's the hero in the story. It's those who are quietly, lovingly taking the risk to pursue peace among each other. Peace out. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. One last little thing about this sign is if you take the Chicago Bulls sign and you turn it upside down, what do you get? You get a robot alien reading at the bima, reading the Torah. Ha! Look at that. Shabbat shalom.